Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
How Jesus became God. Hey everybody, Joe Simons, like diamonds, back again with Salt Strong Unchurched. This is going to be a different one, a very interesting one. It is a book review by a guy named Bart Aram, who used to be a hardcore Christian, and went to school to understand religion, has taught religion, was all in. Talk about someone who spent the majority of their life as a Christian, teaching Christianity, and a historian of religion in general, and is now kind of become an atheist. It's rare, right? Normally it's like the other way around. You hear the stories about someone who's an atheist or they're Jewish or Muslim or whatever, and then became Christian. This is one of the few that kind of went the other way. And I bought this book. The book is actually called How Jesus Became God for two reasons. One, it's a New York Times bestseller. It kept popping up in my feed because I bought some similar books to this. But 2 weeks ago, I talked about becoming more like a scientist. And if you missed that episode, the kind of 30,000 foot view message was, we as a society have become very just stuck in our ways, almost kind of in a rut, I would say, because we do everything on emotion. We believe it's our way or the highway. And you see this in politics and, social media and just the way we react. If someone doesn't agree with us, or they don't vote the same way we do, or look the same way we are, or we do, it's almost like we automatically hate them before we even get to know them. And, I was urging people to think more like a scientist, to take a step back and say, you know what, it's because scientists believe it's okay to be wrong. Actually, it's a great thing if I can learn from it. And I personally have struggled with that. I even talked about the author of the book. As I was like halfway through the book, the author disclosed that they didn't vote the same way I did. And they weren't like a Christian conservative. And automatically, like, my gut reaction was like, oh, no, I don't like this person, or I don't respect them as much. And he even called that out in the book. He's like, yeah, some of you are probably reading this right now saying, probably don't respect this person. But like, that's the whole point of the book. And so I saw this book. I did a little, background. I always read just the, kind of the summary, the highlights, and did say, yeah, it was from, a historian who thinks like a scientist, and used to be a Christian, was a teacher of Christianity, and has kind of gone the other way. And here's the premise of the book. So, he had mentioned, as he was, once again, a historian and even teaching religion in public universities. This is a guy who spent his whole life studying religion. And he said, with Christians in general, even including himself, it seemed that there was kind of two different beliefs about Jesus. You had one, let's just say it was 50-50. And I don't know if that's accurate or not, but that's what he described it, that half of Christians believe that Jesus was a human, that he was born a human, and that he became God at the resurrection, or somewhere around there. And there's another half that believe that he was God from day one, that that Jesus was literally God in human flesh from the day that he was born. And he goes on. This is like, look here, almost a 400-page book. It was a really dense book. The guy definitely knows his stuff, and he probably should studied the Bible for 40 years. But he talks about in the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, in which Jesus never makes an explicit divine claims about himself, those books portray Jesus as a human, but not as a God. Whereas the Gospel of John, in which Jesus does make such divine claims in multiple times, does indeed portray him as God. And he spent a lot of time, and I actually learned some stuff, from this about how the books were written and when, in terms of timeline after Jesus' death, et cetera. And the fact that, for the most part, the followers of Christ, the ones that if you watch like the movie The Chosen and stuff, as I was reading this, I kept going back to the show The Chosen, where I'm kind of seeing these guys interact. These were for the most part, poor fishermen that didn't really know how to write, and they certainly couldn't have documented this stuff the way that the Bible is today. And so a lot of it was told through stories and through word of mouth and through eyewitnesses, etc. And the people who wrote the Bible, the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the New Testament, these were more scholars and wealthier people, well-educated people. They were not the people who were the original, disciples that were writing this. So some of these things, I'm looking at it from his perspective, right? And I think that was why it was eye-opening to me, just to hear someone else's perspective. I feel like I can communicate better I even have a family member who just struggling with faith. And I feel like this empowered me to put myself in their shoes and understand maybe why they have some questions. Because even this gentleman who studied it probably more than most people is having some doubts. And I'm going to tell you the one key ingredient that will make sure you don't have a doubt. And he actually mentioned it in the book multiple times, ironically. But anyhow, talks about how, we've got basically 4 books that talk about Jesus never actually saying that I am God explicitly, and then one that does. So I could see how that, would cause maybe some confusion. And, throughout the book, he's trying to dial in the answer. And his answer is, you could probably already guess, that Jesus was not God day one. And he's saying that all of that happened when at some point during the resurrection. And, this is where it gets kind of cloudy, because we don't know the exact things that happen. Even the books, have a slightly different stories about what happened 3 days after, meaning, was it 2 women there? Was it one person? Who saw him first? Even when Jesus came back, meaning when he actually showed himself to his disciples and many others who have attested that they saw Jesus after he was raised from the dead, it's still not 100% clear who saw him first. I know what some books say, but some say slightly different things. So that was all really eye-opening to me. I never really discovered that until I started reading this. But here's where it all gets really, really interesting. And this is where you can even tell this guy Bart, who's now an atheist, is struggling with it, because he's a historian. So, we talked about being a scientist. At some point, you can take that too far, where, and this is where Bart, you can clearly tell, he's a historian. Historians are not allowed to go off emotion. They're not allowed to go off of faith. A little foreshadowing there. They're not allowed to go off gut feeling. They have to go based on real facts, scientific facts that they can read, study, earmark that, yes, this person in fact did say this at this exact time. They want eyewitnesses. They want as much proof as possible before they can say, yes, this is 100% a fact. And so what Bart does agree, he's like, what most likely happened is that everyone knew this guy Jesus was special. There's a reason we're still talking about him, right? Everyone thought, or at least a lot of his disciples, were thinking that he wasn't going to get taken away when he did, right? And I think we can all agree on that. I don't think any of them, no matter how much Jesus could have foreshadowed it, thought that their guy, their savior, their Messiah, was just going to be taken away from him. And some of them might even have had doubts, as he's saying. I'm sure they probably did when he was crucified. Like, all right, what is going to happen? But it wasn't just the fact that he was not in the grave after 3 days, is what Bart is trying to say. Because, there is still maybe a chance that someone stole the body. Obviously, the body's not there, but what happened to it? Maybe someone did take it. Maybe they moved it. Maybe they were at the wrong gravesite. They're not marked like they are these days. There's a lot of what ifs there. But he said, as soon as the disciples And so meaning when they even heard that he wasn't there, they got hope, but they still had those same doubts. Maybe that, you know what, maybe he did move. Maybe maybe we're at the wrong gravesite. Maybe he's buried somewhere else. And he talks a little bit about Jewish tradition with burials, et cetera. And many of them, if you were crucified, were never even buried to begin with. So there's a lot of things there that you could go a lot of rabbit holes. But he said, once the disciples and other people, by the way, started seeing Jesus come back to life, essentially, whether it was they were all happened to be taking crazy substances and hallucinating, but so many people documented that, yes, we saw him, we spoke to him, we touched him. Here's where he was. Here's exactly, what happened, what was said. That was when they actually started believing, whoa, this guy truly was who he said he was. And once again, I'm just going off of what this book says. I was not there. You weren't there. We don't really know. But here's where Bart struggles. And I'm guessing a lot of people might struggle with this, that don't believe. Bart essentially says, I can't prove without a shadow of a doubt that he rose from the dead, that there's a resurrection, and that he came back to his disciples. He's like, there's plenty of documentation. Obviously, it's written in the Bible, even though some of the books say it's slightly different. He's like, it is all signs point to, yes, this did happen. But as a historian and someone who is basically a scientist of history, I need to have hard, cold truth that this indeed happened before I can truly believe it and sign my name to it. Yes, this did happen. And that's where he struggles. I think a lot of people who have that 100% science kind of mindset are struggling with. And so he says, well, how would anyone believe this? Is kind of a question he poses. And it was one word, and I already foreshadowed it earlier. It's faith, right? And the Bible mentions the word faith hundreds of times. I mean, up to 450 times in certain translations, but at a minimum 250. So somewhere between 250 and 450 times the word faith is mentioned in the Bible, probably for a reason, right? And his point is, you have to have faith to truly believe in this, which is exactly what we've been called to do. And it's one of the toughest things. But I think for me, as soon as you have those miracles in your life, through prayer or through being saved yourself, or seeing others being saved, or others having miracles, or surviving something that maybe should have killed you, having someone pray over you and having that almost just like magnetic kind of weird energy feeling pulsing through you. I've just been part of some really wild things where my faith is really, really strong. Even as I was reading this, I was like, man, I feel sorry for people that don't have the faith that I have. Because, I mean, had you had a clean slate and only read this book, you would have believed that, man, you wouldn't know what to believe. You'd be very confused because it was kind of confusing. But man, I feel sorry for people that don't have the faith. And so it's really the kind of I guess the main message here for this podcast is, yeah, there are some conflicting things out there. And yes, there are people that can try to sell you that Jesus was God, wasn't God, never had a resurrection, etc. But if you really, really dive into to the Word, which is why I encourage everyone, even my wife and kids and friends, that once a day Bible is so good. Read the stuff for yourself. I'll be honest, I missed a lot of this just because I'm hearing it from his angle versus just how I'm interpreting things from the Bible myself. So I am very glad I read this book, How Jesus Became God. And as I shared with you, he was essentially, I don't know why it took him 400 pages, but 400 pages to in his word prove that Jesus wasn't God day one, that that he essentially rose and became God at the resurrection. But all that being said, we have to have faith. We have to have faith that Jesus is the Son of God, that he is the Messiah, that he came to save us, right? To forsake our sins, and that he is listening to us, that he loves us, and he wants us to lead with love. He wants us to have good relationships, which is kind of the point of the last couple messages, right? I'm not saying that we have to agree with everything out there, but personally, I think we're in a really sad place. It just pains me. Even just this week, had a close relative post some stuff on social media, and it went against what I believe personally, and it was I don't know, it's just controversial, and I know, and you hate just seeing other people and other friends now not liking this person because of that, and instead of just having a dialogue and communicating and say, hey, well, yeah, tell me like why you might believe that. I feel like we've gone just so far to the other spectrum where there's this crazy right and crazy left, and the middle is just kind of getting pushed to one side or the other, and everyone hates each other unless you happen to be on the same side. And there's a reason the word or the phrase civil war is like at all-time highs in terms of what people are searching for and researching. It's just sad. And so that's my encouragement to you is have faith, be loving, be kind, be compassionate. Listen to other people. Don't just bash them. It's not going to end well if we literally can't even get along with our own family members or Americans or next door neighbors just because they happen to believe something a little bit different from us. I mean, that was just not the case as I was growing up. And I don't know about you, but yeah, we had friends that voted differently than my parents. We got along with them, and politics didn't come up. And it just seems like everything is so polarizing right now, and not just politics, everything from half the country hates the police, half doesn't, half of them hate firefighter. Like you can't do anything right. It could be the most innocent thing in the world, and if one side or someone who believes something says it's good, there's going to be another half that just says it's bad automatically, even if it's Bambi. That could be the nicest thing in the world, and I just think that is a recipe for disaster. There's a reason we're United States of America, and I just don't feel like we're very united right now. And it hurts me and it probably hurts Jesus, and it hurts God watching down saying, man, what is going on down there? A bunch of knuckleheads no one can agree on anything. So that is my prayer for all of us and for America in general. My friend Johnny, will give him a shout out. Johnny sent me a book that's the opposite of this one. It's called God, the Science, the Evidence, sitting here on my desk. I just bought it. It's another, Johnny, man, you guys are sending these long, but it's like 500 pages. But I will report on that one. It's going to take me a while to read this one. It is a doorstopper for sure. But I'm pumped to read that and just kind of get a whole different perspective. But have the faith. Love you guys. And if you have questions, thoughts, I'm sure I butchered certain things in this. Know that I am not a biblical historian like a pastor or like Bart. I'm just going off of what I know and what I feel and what I'm reading. So if you have any sort of insight, or if I completely butchered something, let me know. I'm always trying to get better. Love you guys, and I will talk to you on the next episode.
'Cause fishing, it's in my soul.